Hello and welcome to Peaky Boardgamer. My name is and in today's video I will teach you how to play the game Castle Panic. It's a game in which 1 to 6 players cooperate to defend their castle from an orcish raid. It's a game that I always enjoy when I play it with my kids or with people that are not into heavy board games with difficult rules and all that. Let's move to the table and see how the game is played. At first, place the board in the middle of the table. Then create the castle by placing one tower and one wall piece to each one of the 6 sections in the castle area in the middle of the board. The map is split to 3 main areas: red mountains, green grasslands and blue lakes. Each one of these areas divides to 2 arcs, thus creating a map with 6 arcs, 1 for each side of a die. Homocentral circles further divide the map into zones. Right outside our castle we have the swordsman zone, where our swordsmen may fight the enemy. Then we have the knight zone, where our knights may fight the enemy. Then we have the archer zone that can be reached only by archers. And finally we have the forest zone. Monsters may never be hit in that zone. Then take the monster tokens, and from there you must find and separate 1 troll token, 2 orc tokens and 3 goblin tokens. Players must decide and place one of these 6 tokens to each one of the 6 arcs in the forest zone. Monster tokens have numbers indicating the remaining hit points. Whenever you place a new monster token on the board, you always place it with the largest number pointing towards the castle. This orc, for example, has 2 remaining hit points. Alternatively, if you have cubes of any color, you may use them in order to track remaining hit points easier. Flip the rest of the monster tiles facing downwards and then shuffle them, creating a pile. Place the 2 wall fortification tokens, the tar token and the die next to the board as well, and then shuffle all the cards of the game and create a face down stack, placing it next to the board. From this deck, each player now takes cards equal to the player's hand limit. This limit is different depending on the number of players. In a 6 players game, the limit is 4 cards. With 3 to 5 players, the limit is 5 cards, and in a 2 players game, this limit increases to 6 cards. After players take their starting hands from the stack, they may keep them facing upwards so everyone can see them. Randomly select a player to take the first turn, and the game is now ready to start. In the game, players are trying to defend their castle, which is in the center of a map, surrounded by enemy monsters marching to destroy it. In the game, players take turns clockwisely, doing the best they can with their cards in order to repel the attack. This continues until all players win by destroying all of the monster tokens, or until they all lose if monsters achieve to destroy all 6 towers in the center of the castle. Players alternate turns, starting with the first player and then continuing in a clockwise order. On their turn, players have to follow steps in specific order as indicated in their player aid card. In the first step, players draw cards to reach their hand limit, which in this 2-player example is 6 cards. I'm already at my limit, so this step is skipped. However, if I only had 4 cards at the start of my turn, then I would draw 2 more cards from the stack. Whenever players need to draw cards and the stack is depleted, then players reshuffle the discards to create a new stack. In the next step, the player may discard one of their cards in order to draw a new one, and this is completely optional, so if I want, I discard one of my cards and draw a new one. The next step again is optional. The player may trade one of their cards with a card of any other player, so I could give that player this card and gain that card. Exception: in a 6 players game only, players may trade 2 cards, either from one player or 1 card from 2 different players. Last but not least, both players must agree on this transaction. The next step is play cards. During this step, players play any number of their cards in order to do various things. The player can play a hero card to do 1 damage to a monster, or play a mortar and brick in order to reconstruct a destroyed wall in the castle. I will explain everything about cards in a bit. For now you should know that players can play any number of cards and that all played cards move to the discard pile. In the next step, the player moves all monsters that are still alive on the board. All monsters move 1 step closer to the castle. When a monster's movement is blocked by a castle wall, the monster receives 1 hit, the wall is destroyed, and the monster remains in the same location. Of course, this hit could even kill the monster. If we had multiple monsters hitting the same wall, players decide which monster receives the hit, the wall is then destroyed, and all monsters remain in the same location. If there is no wall blocking the monster's movement, then the monster moves inside the castle, and if there is a tower there, it is destroyed and the monster receives 1 hit. Again, if we had multiple monsters moving in, all monsters would move inside, and if there were a tower, only 1 of them would receive a hit. Finally, if there are any monsters within the castle and need to move, they will move 1 step clockwise within the castle area. In the same way, if there was a tower there, 1 of the monsters would receive 1 hit. In this case, the monster will be killed. At any time, if the last tower of the castle is destroyed, then players lose immediately. In the last step of the player's turn, that player draws 2 new monster tiles from the pile, and then resolves each one of them 1 at a time. If the token is a monster, then the player rolls the die, which will indicate the location that the new monster will be placed. If the tile is not a monster, then the player carries out the effect of the tile. I will also explain most of the tiles shortly. Archman, Swordsman and Knight cards are the main cards for inflicting a hit to various monsters on the board. These cards correlate with one of the colors. For example, a blue knight can attack in this area, a red swordsman in this area, and a green archer in this area. All these cards inflict only 1 hit to the chosen monster. Each time a monster receives 1 hit, you turn the token clockwise to show the next lower number. If you use cubes, then simply remove 1 of the cubes for each hit. After a monster token receives the last hit, it is removed from the board. If the monster was slain by an attack of a player, then that player keeps the monster token. Otherwise, it is placed in a general discard pile. Then we have cards that correlate to all colors, like the Any Color Knight, that could inflict a hit to any monster within the Knight zone. We also have hero cards that correlate to 1 color and can inflict a hit to any monster within the whole sector of the corresponding color, so the blue hero could inflict a hit in these areas. All of these cards can also be combined with a Nice Shot card, which will instantly slay the targeted monster. Cards depicting a tower in the top can be used to target any unit as normal, but are the only cards that can target units that have infiltrated in the castle. The Barbarian card can instantly slay any unit on the board except the ones that are in the forest zone. The Drive Him Back card can move the targeted unit back to the forest of the same arc. When we target a monster with the Tar card, we simply place the Tar token on the monster's token. The next time this monster will have to move, it will simply lose the Tar token and it will remain in the same location. If a player plays a brick and a mortar together, then that player reconstructs a destroyed wall of the castle. With a fortify wall, the player places 1 of these tokens to any one of the walls of the castle. Now when a monster hits that wall, instead of destroying the wall, it will destroy only the fortification. Players that play Missing will skip the last step of their turn and will not draw any monster tokens. With Draw 2 cards card, the player simply draws 2 cards from the stack, placing them into their hand. Finally, players who play Scavenge can search the discarded cards and then take any 1 card into their hand. Some of the monster tokens depict various effects that take place immediately after these tiles are drawn. I will now explain all of these tiles. This here instantly moves all monsters within the indicated sector 1 step closer to the castle. This effect instantly moves all monsters clockwise or counterclockwise. With the Plague effect, players must immediately discard from their hands all cards of the indicated type. Also, we have some monster tokens that require the player to draw additional monster tokens immediately. Again, this will be resolved one token at a time. When you reveal a giant boulder, then again you have to roll a die to designate the arc where it's rolling from. Then the boulder starts to roll from the indicated arc and destroys all monsters, even the ones within the forest. So this one is destroyed and then that one is destroyed. The boulder keeps rolling until it hits a wall, which in this case, the wall is destroyed as well as the boulder. If there is no wall, the boulder will continue and will destroy the tower. If there were no tower, the boulder will continue and will destroy the opposite tower. If there is no opposite tower, the boulder will continue to reach the opposite wall. If there is nothing to stop the boulder, then the boulder will continue, destroying all monsters in the opposite arc. During the game, players will have to encounter and defeat 4 monster bosses. Each one of these bosses has a special power that has to be resolved immediately after the boss enters the board. After the Goblin King enters the board, players will have to resolve 3 additional monster tokens. When the Orc Overlord enters the board, then all other monsters within the same arc where he entered move immediately one step closer to the castle. If this finds a monster within the castle ring, then that monster will move one step clockwise. Similarly, after the Troll Mage enters the board, every monster on the board will move one space closer to the castle, even himself, and also all monsters that are within the castle ring, so this one will move as well. Finally, we have the Healer. When this one comes into the board, all monsters regain 1 hit point unless they're already at their maximum. After the last monster is slain, then all players win. However, a winner can be declared depending on the monster tokens slain personally by each one of the players. Each boss token grants the player 4 victory points, troll tokens award 3, orcs 2, and finally goblins are only 1 point for each token. The player with the most victory points is declared the Master Slayer. And that was the video for Castle Panic. Panic will surely hit you while playing this game. If you like our video and want to see more, please subscribe to my channel, and until next time, have fun and play more board games.